You're like,
So this is Senate Transportation. It is Friday, April 17th. We are here with Clayton Clark, who's the general manager of GMT. And thank you for Clayton for being here. And we're totally open and yours to listen to this morning.
Oh, thank you so much. And we'll try to take as little time of yours as possible as we talk a little bit about Section 30 of H94. And so I just sent a request to share my screen.
sorry, coming. Section 30, and that as passed by the House.
And so it was Section 8 as passed by the House, and I think Section 30 and the.
Oh, did it actually make it into? Oh, I know.
And so hopefully you all are seeing Section 30 of H944 on screen, and I'll walk you through.
Perfect, thank you.
And so there we go. And so Green Mountain Transit uses its formula for assessment as its primary tool for collecting about $4 million, a little over that each year from its 8 local members. And this is the root of our taxation authority is having a formula that members have agreed upon. And in order to make changes to this formula, it requires 75% of our members to agree upon that change. It used to be 100%, but it was changed about 12 years ago to 75%. And for reasons that I'm sure you could understand, this is a formula that doesn't get modified often because coming up with a formula that the city of Burlington, who contributes, over $2 million, and say the town of Milton, which contributes about $50,000, so it's hard coming up with a methodology that all parties can agree with, and so that's why it hasn't been updated in 20 years. We love the formula for assessment, but in some ways it's both a blessing and a curse, and I'll talk a little bit about that next. So the limitations of the formulas is it's extremely inflexible, and it was built to distribute the costs across all members in an equitable and fair fashion, and it does that exceptionally well. The problem is that there's service that we may not want to have the cost distributed across all members, and we'll get to that shortly. And what I perhaps see as the biggest downfall of it is that it doesn't allow us to emulate our rural counterparts, in that we collect our local revenue just from our 8 local member municipalities. And so large organizations, hospitals, schools in our urban area, they may support GMT through unlimited access plans so that it'll cover fares for their students or employees, but they don't actually contribute directly to the service. The other problem with the formula for assessment is that it only raises a portion of the cost of the service. And so approximately 20% of the cost of a service will end up on one of the members' bills, but the 80% then ends up coming out of local, state, and federal existing funds. And so as you can imagine, that creates a situation where when we make decisions about service and we only collect 20% of the revenue, it's not good for our deficit.
Can I?
Clayton, we do have a question from Senator Harris.
And Clayton, I can ask this question later, but I just want to know more details about when you say only municipalities contribute, because I did understand that UVM and others paid something, but if they're paying just the fee, the ride fee, then that might not be enough. Or
yes, exactly. And so for example, the University of Vermont Medical Center contributes $65,000 a year for their unlimited access program so that all of their employees are able to ride for free. But they don't actually contribute towards the underlying cost of the service.
Right. So you have so they get an amount of tickets equal to what they're paying, and that doesn't because the rate that they pay
Mhm.
isn't doesn't include a lot of other things.
Exactly. It's essentially fair replacement revenue. So we're not going to get any
Yes.
more from that than we would get from if their employees were paying the fares directly.
Right, and I'm sure you have a amount of the fare versus what it would be if it included everything.
Oh, yes. And so when you think about the fact that our average cost per ride in the urban area is between $7 and $8, and our full price fare is $2, but a majority of our riders are paying the discount. So the average is about $1.50. So $1.50 out of roughly $7.50 is what fares contribute towards the cost.
Okay.
Yep. And so I want to provide two examples of how the formula doesn't give us great options. And so the first is with the medical center. And so the medical center would like us to route the number 11, which connects downtown Burlington with South Burlington. They would like us to serve the front door of the hospital. Right now, it goes by the hospital on Main Street, which is about a 12-minute walk. And as you can imagine, the hospital has concerns about that for both their employees and especially their patients. So the cost of adding that $5 pull in, or I'm sorry, 5-minute pull in and 5-minute pull out for every one of the 11 is about $110,000 a year. So some people get surprised that such a simple addition to a route would have such an impact, but those add up and multiply across the day. And so let's say the GMT board decided that, you know what, UVM Medical Center is absolutely right. We should serve the front door of the hospital. If they were to change the service, we would end up with about 20% of new revenue from that change coming from Burlington, because the hospital's in the city of Burlington's area. And the other 80% of the costs would not be generated. It would just have to come from existing revenue. It also means that because of the formula, that change to a large employer in Burlington would impact the assessments for everybody because of using that 80% of state and federal. And what I see important, there's no direct contribution from the requester, the hospital. Looking at another example, the route performance report has identified that our service in the town of Essex and Essex Junction has been economically inefficient for about a decade. We have been hesitant to end that service because it's the only service that the town of Essex receives, and this would likely mean losing them as a member. And we hear consistently from them, and especially the school district, that this is actually a critical service. It may not be meeting economic efficiency, but it's actually doing something important for the community. The unfortunate situation is that because of our formula for assessment and the way all of the costs are spread across all of the members, we're in a position that our financial situation is going to require the board likely to eliminate that service next week, because having an inefficient service in one spot impacts the whole. And so what does Section 30 do? What it does is allows us to accept or create service agreements with direct partnerships outside the formula for assessment. And I do want to emphasize, this is not going to replace the formula for assessment. We're still going to get the bulk of our local from the formula assessment. It's done well. It just needs this tweak. And so Section 30 will allow us to have direct partnerships. It then allows us to have, if the hospital or a school district or even one of our member municipalities says, hey, we want to do a particular service and we're willing to pay for it, that it doesn't have to go into the formula and then be spread across all of the members. We see this as having the potential to sustain service, and we see this as having the potential to make service additions something that they aren't now, which is sustainable. Right now, any service addition is going to drive our deficit up. And this would give us the ability to have a service addition that's financially stable. So when we look at our two examples, we can go back to the hospital and say, hey, we absolutely agree with you. Let's negotiate, and maybe we get the full 110,000 from them. Maybe it's a lesser amount if we can come to some type of agreement, but it aligns the cost with the requester for the hospital. And in the example for the Forest Circulator, the school district and the municipality outside the formula would be able to say, hey, you know what? We understand that this doesn't meet public transit economic efficiency standards, but we're still willing to pay for it because it does a critical service, and here's our opportunity to do so without harming GMT. And so it creates a new, so the Section 30 would create new local revenue options to both preserve and expand sustainably. And I think that expand sustainably is critical because, let's face it, we're not really talking about much expansion right now, but we do know in the future that we will need to expand at some point, and we want to be able to do so in a more sustainable fashion. Where I see this as being helpful is that it means that I don't have to come back to my member municipalities and ask for more. I don't have to come back to you all and ask for more state funds. And I don't have to go to Ross and VTrans and say, hey, we need more federal funds to do service when we can perhaps generate the local revenue here on its own. And so that's, I'm going to stop my share so that we can see each other better and be happy to answer any questions that you have. Oh, let's see if I could figure out, it's only been like 6 years that I've been using Zoom.
Well, they change it all the time.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so I appreciate you coming in and talking to us, Clayton. This is great. So if I'm understanding correctly, and I had misunderstood this before,
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure I'm following along. I thought we hadn't included these sections in the T-bill,
Well,
so we did.
We apparently did.
Okay, so that means we don't need to amend the
We
T-bill to
don't need to
include this
amend it.
language.
Yep.
Okay, so that's really all I had to say, is I feel good about this language. And I think it's important that you're taking the steps to look at other financial opportunities for GMT through private donation. But my understanding was that you could do that already. So is this more just like clarifying that?
This is definitely to clarify. We have had our lawyer look at the situation and say that it's kind of borderline about whether or not we can accept local funds, especially from a member outside of the formula for assessment. Because we do expect that there's going to be times when our member is going to want to pay directly for something and not have it be part of that. And so I think that was the real reason why we thought it was necessary to clarify that we can collect funds from members outside the formula for assessment.
Yeah, because it sounds like you would be worried that it would appear to be advantaging perhaps one. So I appreciate that, especially with the Essex Circulator. If I was that community, I might be raising my hand a little higher to offer support.
Yes.
Pat.
So Clayton, when you talked about the other medical center group,
Mhm.
what are you looking for again from them, right? From the requester?
Yes, and so this gives us the opportunity when somebody submits a request for service that we can turn right around and ask them, is this something that you'd be willing to pay for? Where right now that doesn't enter the conversation.
So they pay zero.
Yes.
You're on that slide that had the 20%. I didn't quite understand that. You seem to think that the way it read is that you'd be receiving 20%, which would add to your revenues, but still put you in a deficit.
Yes, because if we added, and just for simple math, I'm going to use 100,000. If we added $100,000 worth of new service, it would only result in approximately 20% of new revenue, because that would be the share that would end up on the member where that new service is added. And so thinking about the hospital again, with the hospital in Burlington, if we were to serve the front door and add that cost, we would generate 20% of the cost of that from Burlington as part of the formula for assessment, and the other 80% just comes out of our existing funding.
So it's still a losing proposition for you.
So under the formula for assessment, exactly, it's still a losing proposition for us. And with Section 30, we would be able to say, hey, we would be happy to do this, but we need you to pay for it so it doesn't add to our deficit, and here's the cost.
Okay, that clears it for me. That was.
Wendy,
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, when I saw this language, I wanted it to be stronger because I wanted to delete voluntary. Not that I don't want voluntary, but we need revenue. And so there are going to be times, well, there are times now when development review, so to get a permit, that, and mostly with Act 250 permits, but they can also be with regular permits, you have to support the transit. There's an amount that you have to pay. That's an annual amount. That's not based on what you get, but it's based on your impact. So this is in addition to those, is how I'm thinking about this, Clayton. And I'm very supportive. But I just caution you, it's gonna get really complicated too.
Yes.
I mean, you're gonna have multiple entities looking at the same route, and then you gotta figure out who does what.
Yes.
So it's gonna be a challenge to define the benefits specifically, but hospitals for sure should be paying. So I think this is good. So just keep good records. We can use this as an example.
Yeah. One of the things that this is something that I may have been more concerned about doing if we weren't having the rural transfer. And this is where it's like, okay, this really is going to allow us to focus on urban. You're absolutely right that this is going to make things a lot more complicated, because then we're going to have a series of service agreements that are all going to interplay with each other. And I'm not sure I would want to be tackling that if we were still operating across 5 counties. And so I think that we'll definitely have the capacity to be able to do this and do it well.
Good, and then let me add something, just with economic development, there could be an agency on behalf of economic development of the region that would want to increase service. I'm thinking, for example, to the train, to both, I mean, you have 2 trains in your district, so having connections that go with the train, that could, or maybe Amtrak would put something in, so you could have a multiple a number of revenue sources for something like that.
You're absolutely right. The airport comes to mind, because especially since we stopped serving the airport with that number 11 service, giving them the ability to contribute is going to be the top of the list if this is enacted. Really, one of the things that we're going to be trying to do is reaching out to every school district, figuring out, like understanding that FTA provides specific rules about what public transit can and can't do, but trying to figure out where we can maximize integration. And this will then be a tool that we would be able to work with school districts on that. And so, and to that end, one of the things that I do want to let folks know is that we are going to be bringing on a familiar face to many of you, and that Chris Cole, who was previously in my role for about a decade, previously Secretary of Transportation, but more interesting to me, he was the Executive Director of Community Rides Vermont, and they were doing some really integrated or innovative stuff. And so we're bringing him in on a part-time basis to help us look at the service area, look at the hospital in terms of not just providing service for them and their patients with public transit, but also talking to the hospital about, hey, we understand the Green Mountain Care Board is, putting a lot of pressure on you to cut services. You have an employee shuttle, that connects to offsite parking. Is there potential ways that we would want to partner so that some of those employee shuttles would be public transit? And so that's the type of work that that we're going to be asking Chris to do. And I think that he's going to have the sort of the innovative and business entrepreneurial type thinking, to be able to help us with that.
Go ahead.
This is a little outside of, I think, your specific network, although with the UVM Medical Center, it might become more of a conversation. So there's the rural healthcare transformation money that's coming.
Yep.
And we've talked to other providers who are interested in using potentially money that would have been for the volunteer drivers coordination to create a more connected system within the hospitals. We've heard that. We've also heard that we could potentially use the rural healthcare transformation money. Have you heard anything about that, or are you potentially hoping to draw down some of those funds?
And so we have not heard, other than my understanding is that the University of Vermont Medical Center was unlikely to be able to benefit from those funds.
Oh.
And so, so I think it's still a work in progress as far as what can be accessed. But I would definitely think that we, where opportunities allow, we have connecting service from Montpelier to Burlington, St. Albans to Burlington, and I know a lot of folks use that service to access the hospital. And so I could see that potentially being a revenue source for the commuter services to get people to appointments.
Yeah, and even having some better coordination around just could someone, instead of taking a taxi, essentially, like if you've got an outpatient situation, or someone's getting, like with the dialysis trips we heard so frequently, like I feel like that's an obvious rural healthcare transformation opportunity. I had not heard that UVM was unlikely to be a recipient of the funds, but that kind of makes sense with my understanding of the funds as well. So we'll look more into it, but thank you for answering the question.
Thank you.
Good.
One more from Pat.
Just one more. Do you provide, who transports employees at the medical center from the various park and rides like Centennial? Is that you?
Nope, that's Premier, which is
Okay.
a charter company. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
And-
do you know what they charge?
Yeah.
People,
I mean, they
know.
probably charge a
people
lot,
contract with,
right?
but
Yeah, they contract with them.
I can tell you that, they have wonderful charter buses. It's a private service in that it's, point to point without the general public, riding. So I do know that it's something that their employees, I'm sure are very, favorable of the existing service. But one of the things that they would have to do with that contract with Premier is that they wouldn't have the subsidies that we have on the vehicles. And so I have to imagine that the cost for Premier to provide that would be substantially higher, since the federal government is paying for, our the vast bulk of our vehicle costs.
Yeah.
Right, and they would need to be technically public.
Yes, and we would have to, people would be allowed to get on from there, and we'd probably have to have at least a stop or two, along the way. And I don't, I would never show up to the hospital and suggest that, in one fell swoop, we transfer everything because, you know, it would take us a while to ramp up both vehicles and staff to do that. But I see this as like, you know, hey, maybe during some peak times for our operation, we take this over for you. It helps with your cost savings, you know, from non-clinical matters. It helps with our situation. And so that's why I think that having Chris, you know, helping us with some of those conversations is going to be good for our future.
That's great.
I think at this point, thank you very much, Clayton.
Thank you.
We wanted to hear from you before we made and be able to tell the floor that we'd heard directly from you, and we're very happy to be accommodating in this.
Thank you so much. I wish you all the best of luck in navigating these very weird times. And so please let me know if I can do anything in the future.
Yeah, we know that you've been navigating too,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and we totally appreciate that.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye. And at that point, that